Audio. All right. Well, here we go. Let's see. That's set. Go in here. We sync everything up. Switch that to live. Wait for this to load and load. Okay, that's ready. Hello, everybody who is already here and are watching the recording after this. If you're watching the recording, if you want, you can probably skip the first few minutes. That's fine. But this will actually, I have no idea how long this will be. I'm going to try to keep it under an hour just because that's been my general preference. But let me also go refresh Atlanta, bro, here just to see. Nope, nothing new. All right. It would be there if it has started, but it has apparently not started. And let's see. Uh, 3 p.m. Alaska time is like what, 2, 3 a.m. Iranian time. So if it was going to start tonight, it would have already started by now, most likely at least. But everything has been getting sent over there over this past week. You guys remember on Monday or Tuesday, whichever it was, when I did the previous stream, I said there had started to be a surge of stuff. Well, that surge kind of continued for the whole week, actually got even bigger and is still ongoing even tonight. There is still there's still stuff. And you know that's no, that's grain. There's and more stuff. That was from earlier this morning. This one is from just recently. So the total loadout of stuff that has been sent over there. Now, keep in mind the in-air refueling tankers is when I get to those numbers isn't necessarily because that many are needed like in operation while everything is going to be happening. A portion of their numbers being so huge. Oops, didn't mean to right click. A portion part of the reason why their numbers initially will seem so huge is because they're critical for uh, shipment for flying things that long range distance over even for if they're doing like stopovers in Europe, you still tend to use tankers because otherwise you'd have to have external fuel tanks on the jets, which is typically not preferable. But the the inflow of stuff has gone on and on and on, just kept going and going. You had the C-17s, hundreds of flights. You have the C-5s picking up some of the slack as well. Had dozens of those going. Then you have the tankers ferrying. You'll draw really, it's going to be some bad artworks, really crude aircraft here. Still better than AI, but really crude. And they have the thing that comes out, and then fighter jets can come up behind them and refuel. F for fuel, not to pay respects. But you had all this heading over there, plus the naval assets and everything. So we're gonna get into the numbers really soon. Once I check, see if anybody's alive. No one is alive. We have 3 people now. We have 2. All right, that crowd is gone. I guess I don't know why. Like 1,200 people were like flocking in and out of my streams in particular during that one week, like at the start of the month. That was really weird. That was appreciated. I mean, that was like appreciated while it happened because that was kind of a decent revenue boost. But I have no idea why everyone was suddenly showing up to my stream of all things. So let's see. Oops, no. Want the mouse. So the assembly that already existed that everyone should be aware of was the Abraham Lincoln supercarrier group had showed up through the control tower there, had showed up and parked in the Arabian Sea, along with the usual accompaniment of four Arleigh Burke destroyers and either one or two Ticonderoga missile cruisers, plus one or two undisclosed missile subs slash attack subs. And the super carriers carry dozens of a mixture of F-18s and F-35s. They're not all 35s yet. The 18s are gradually being replaced as the 35s are manufactured. But it's still, in a lot of cases, it's still a half and half split. So also, again, before this week started, even a couple more solo destroyers arrived. Not the solo, not at well, solo as in by themselves, not as in there's a class by that. They're all just variants of the Arleigh Burke destroyer. But a few more arrived solo to pack up in there, and we do usually have some combat jets that are stationed throughout bases in the Middle East normally. So there are already always assets there. And for the past few weeks, there were constantly C-17 flights coming in and out all the time that were bringing in air defense systems. You get that there. Yeah, there you go. There's a launcher, and you have the thing, and then and draw the rocket exhaust out the back of the truck there. And there, yeah, there goes the missile. So a whole bunch of dozens of anti-air systems, air defense batteries to establish a AD shield basically against attempted retaliation via cruise missiles or ballistic missiles. Now, depending on the density and how many combat jets are put up to do in-air air defense as well, uh, if Iran launches like a large enough wave of stuff, like if they launch hundreds of missiles in one big wave, then there will be some fair amount of penetration. Some stuff by sheer numbers will inevitably get through that. I think I said before, anywhere from like probably 10 to 30%, depending on how much they launch as their first retaliation wave would be the biggest because after that they would have revealed their previous like hidden launching locations, which will then all get bombed. So the first and biggest retaliation wave would probably, if they launched hundreds at once, would probably see like 10 to 30% get through to some extent, but that variation between 10 and 30% would depend on how many combat jets were put airborne and launched air-to-air missiles against the incoming missiles from Iran's side, as that's part of the extra screening that we did back in June. But all that was before this week. So this week, we had stuff pouring in all day, every day. And so, let's see. I'll responsibly check chat one more time. Nobody's alive. Okay. If you just showed up now, you've only missed like 3 minutes maybe of important stuff. You can scroll back along the timeline. But anyways, so total the total number of stuff now as it stands. So you already had the one supercarrier Abraham Lincoln, which has a mixture of dozens of F-18s and 35s. You had in total, like with the solo ones that joined it, 6 destroyers, 1 to 2 missile cruisers, and a couple subs. You had combat jets that were already stationed in the Middle East. Now you have somewhere in the Mediterranean. They give its actual location updates delayed by a few days for security reasons, obviously. Whether it's going to park off Israel and launch from the Far Eastern Med, or whether they're going to wait another week before starting this, and it's actually going to come down through the Red Sea and over here. I don't know, but you have that that Gerald Ford group, that little ensemble of the Gerald Ford, its associated destroyers and missile cruisers, plus like there were a few others that joined it for a slightly larger, I don't know what the proper term would be, flotilla off Venezuela when the Venezuela operation happened. So that little friend group has been relocated over here. And like I said, don't know if they're going to stay there, if they're going to park off of Israel, or if they're going to be heading over to the Arabian Sea as well. But through the air, through air trains, air lawn trains of air, what's called ferrying squads into and throughout bases in and surrounding the Middle East. We have now, over this past week, pumped the region full of, let's see, that is what we got here. We have 60 of my personal favorite, the fighter jet that I grew up around at Otis Air Force Base back on Cape Cod. My parents were engine mechanics on those. You have 60 F-15s. You have 64 F-16s. Not the biggest fan of those, but apparently a lot of people love that one more than the F-15. F-15 is objectively better. It is because of my nostalgia, but my nostalgia is objectively correct. You have 66 F-35 stealth multi-roles. You have, let's see, where are the 22s? I think it is just 12. 12 F-22s, 12 A-10s. You have 11 AWACS slash EWACS aircraft, the Flying Command and Control Center plus long range over horizon radar stuff, along with let me see, where are they? There we go. 30 EGs, a lot of which are E-18 Growlers, but some are other types of aircraft that perform the same role, that fly at various altitudes and do radar and communication suppression. And in total, the number of tankers is in-air refueling tankers is 102. Now, again, as I said at the very start, that is not that number is not because that many are needed for an ongoing operation once it starts. The reason there's 102 there, for the moment, some of them are going to get withdrawn and head back out. The reason that many are there is because all of this was getting ferried over there. So that high of a number is primarily because that was what was required to do all these long air train ferrying of all this excess stuff. So that's the stuff on the ground, with the exception of the EGs. The EG ones are half of those are on the carriers, half those are on the ground, but all the other aircraft, those are on ground. So the combat ones in particular, specifically, these are what is on the ground. Then you have another 100 plus on the carriers. Again, a mixture, roughly like kind of half and half split between F-18s and F-35s. The F-18s are getting phased out, but that's going to take a few years because you can only replace those once each F-35 has been manufactured to replace each F-18. So you got all that sitting in place now. which, as has been noted by many people, is the largest force presence the U.S. has assembled in, at least in terms of air and naval assets, since 2003 or 1991. And there were also a few specific special fly-ins by a few specialized C-130s and C-5s that are specific designations of them that are usually used to fly, are usually used to transport stealth helicopters for spec ops insertion operations. As the helicopters obviously can't cross the ocean, and there's not really a proper mechanism to do in-air refueling. Some of them can. Some of them have like a long boom at the front. Like, hold on. Yeah, the tail rotor back here, and then yeah, you have like a big fat avlo or whatever, huge rotor blades. Some of them have like a long. There's a few specific types that have a long boom extended in front that you can do in-air refueling from. But that has to be like a really, really slow aircraft that's doing that. But typically, they're either transported navally if they're ones that are built to withstand the spray from salt water, or you just kind of fold the propellers up. Like if you're looking down from the top, if you're looking down from like the top, instead of having the blades out like that, you do a they can fold back like this so that it's narrow enough to fit inside the fuselage of a cargo plane. So you just fold them up like who is it? Which Decepticon am I thinking of? Blackout. You fold up the rotor blades like Blackout. So theoretically, that implies we do intend to do some kind of on ground stuff. I really doubt, especially because of the distances this time. I really doubt it's going to be any like midnight kidnapping operation like the Maduro stuff. But apparently, theoretically, something is going to be done with either SEALs and or Delta. I don't know what. Maybe it's going to be a mix of like they're going to get flown in with along with like some guys from Keaton or something to like I don't know get inserted at one of those sites and hack the tunnels. Like I'm just throwing out a wild guess. Like check the tunnels to see if they really were collapsed during the attacks back in June. And I don't know if not, like plant some charges or something, or maybe they're gonna get flown in to like assassinate some of the remaining nuclear scientists or whatever. But apart from all that buildup, there is obviously the IDF itself, as Israel is going to be participating no matter what. And IDF is around, I think, 300 combat jets in total. They're a mixture, they're like a 30-30-30 split between F-15s, 16s, and F-35s. And then for air defense, although they'll insist they're going to play no part in everything, in anything, just like last time, they are going to do stuff as they have done every time. The Jordanian, Iraqi, and Saudi air forces, at the very least, are going to send up aircraft to intercept missiles over their territory, even though the missiles will be heading explicitly for U.S. bases and or for Israel. The way they get away with it, with like what they tell their public, is that they just say, they were sent into Saudi airspace, therefore it was technically targeting Saudi Arabia. So they have done that repeatedly before. So even though, again, like always, they say they're not publicly going to help the U.S. or Israel. They are, because they have done so every single time. And the UK, as I stated before, has been flying in Typhoon fighter jets to their bases in Cyprus and other countries that had not done so already, or who for some reason had let their citizens return to Iran, have all of a sudden, as of this week now, started rapidly pulling everyone from Iran that they have in country out. And other nations who have troops at various bases around the region have begun pulling their their contingents out to avoid the inbound potential retaliation missile waves. And the U.S. itself also has relocated a bunch of personnel and equipment from some bases to other specific bases in sort of preemptive consolidation, taking personnel from smaller stationings and where it would be easy, where there's less stuff and it's easier to pick up everything and move it, and sort of putting stuff more consolidated together so that everything can be sort of packed under like denser AD networks around one location or a few specific locations instead of instead of the general idea of a really broad AD blanket. It'll be a bit more specifically firmly concentrated. Don't take these as actual locations. I'm just sort of drawing wherever. And I'm checking. Yeah, okay. There's nothing I missed regarding the types of aircraft and the numbers as far as I could see on the sheet. There's everybody. Let's see. Yeah, I missed the F-117. That was still around when I grew up, but it's gone. That is a throwback aircraft. If anyone's not familiar with stealth design, part of it is design, part of it is the actual material, both paint and the particular metallic alloy, semi-carbon fiber alloy that absorbs the radar, and part of it is design that ref not reflects but deflects it. The reason why everything stealth now is smooth, but the F-117 was full of angles, is literally because the computers that the engineers used to model and design it in the 70s could not were computers at the time were not good enough to handle and model actual curved lines. They could still only understand angles. So that's the reason the F-117 was shaped like that. Yeah, hold on. Let's see. Let's get the difference. Let's see, F-117. Yeah, F-117. You are giving me the full size, right? Yes. F-117 versus, say, the B-2. Once you introduce curves for the F-35, things curved. But that's not like a joke. That is the actual reason why it looked like that. The hold on, let me. I want to see. What's it? F-117 original design or schematic? Which one would it be? Uh, Nah, I remember seeing it once, like the original. Uh, I saw like some of the original drawings for it once, and it was originally, it kind of looked like a, a tighter arrowhead fighter jet shaped version of the B-2, because they drew it with curves, but when they were doing like the radar modeling in the computer could only work with angles, so they had to convert it to angles. Original schematic? No, this is in Pinterest. This is just fan art. Damn it, it's gone. I don't like having to resort to trust me, bro. But they did originally intend for it to be like curved and smooth, but the computers of the era couldn't do curved lines. Uh, hold on. I'm forgetting about something. Oh, uh, back to chat in a second. Quick note for Iraq. Quick note for you, Iraq. You're having a really, really dumb moment. Like I really don't get it. So I made that video a while back about how Iraq has lost like 60% of its farmland. It's arable land. It has actually lost about 60% of it to salinity, to saltwater intrusion, and semi like river stagnation and backflow at certain periods, along with extended drought exposure when river flow was exceedingly low because of stuff happening upstream, compounded with regional drought. So a lot of the led to a lot of soil degradation and stuff blew away. So Iraq's total agricultural capacity has slipped down from being capable at maximum of feeding maybe 25 to 30 million people, which is, how the Sumerian Empire was able to feed itself. Also, because way back then there were nowhere near as many people, down to only really having the capacity to feed like 10 to 12 million people, which is why they're so import dependent. So Iraq, I'm not blaming the Iraqi people for this, obviously, but Iraq, the national entity, the Iraqi government, if you will, has decided that instead of trying to maximize what they do have for domestic food production, uh, wheat, maize, etc., to at least try to be as least try to be at a the lowest level of import dependency possible. They have started they've started going into cash cropping, and so as of now, the last few weeks, they have recently entered the world stage as a suddenly emerging major tomato exporter instead of you know doing domestic food security. So awesome, brilliant, brilliant. I already knew it wasn't, but I do love learning that like my own government isn't is like far from the one that has like sub-zero IQ. Actually, I think there's fewer than 10 countries on Earth whose governments I would actually rate the IQ of higher than like 15. But yeah, they're doing that. Meanwhile, we're going to be doing this. Everybody seems to think it's starting either tonight or tomorrow night. And then there's another group of people who think it's not going to start until, for some reason, like April 1st. But that would be a bit much to have it all just kind of sitting there meandering around for that amount of time. But I guess we'll see. I think, let's see, some people did say that maybe for like the sake of ego, Trump wants to wait until after his big speech this this coming week, the annual State of the Union speech, where insert president here gets to get up on stage and brag about how awesome they were for the last year or so. So in theory, people seem to think he might be waiting until next weekend because he doesn't want this to like hang over his head during that speech. But I would not see that as like the actual reasoning because everyone kind of already hates him. And like this whole mess is from the American mind's perspective, does not it does not register as high as some of the other stuff that he's doing, especially like all the child rape stuff he used to do in the hot tub with Epstein that everyone's well aware of now, along with like the expose that basically every elected official ever from more than just the U.S. And every person with a net worth of like more than a few $1 million has always just been molesting kids in the hot tub. Apparently, I guess I mean, my usual standpoint and proposition is that no matter how good anyone is, how much my parents, for example, try to hype up the senator that they spoke to this one time. I everyone who is involved in politics is inherently evil because to want to be in a position of power at any level to begin with, you inherently have to be at least a sociopath, if not a full-blown psychopath. But I guess also past a certain point, if you go past a certain point in either wealth or uh, power level, you instantaneously just become a pedophile because literally everyone's doing it apparently. And this doesn't even just this isn't even just not even just restricted to politicians and like regular billionaires and millionaires either. This also includes like popular social media personalities as yet another wave of some of like the more popular uh, Twitch streamers slash some of them were YouTube political streamers, the ones that like everybody likes, uh, and the ones that no one ever like disowns or unsubscribes to that can somehow do literally anything. Like Hassan didn't do any kids that we know of yet, but he does electrocute dogs, and somehow only lost like 10% of his fan base for that. But another wave just came out revealing, yep, hey, guess what, everybody? They were doing kids, and some of them even bragged about it. So I'm in the that spiral where I'm really starting to wonder, are there any actual like normal people left, or were there never any to begin with? Let's see. Blah blah blah. Various government side. Yeah, I think. I'll give you I'll give you a one. I'll give you a one go. But one of the few governments with an IQ above like 10 or 15 is Norway. I'll give you Norway. Norway is pretty okay. Blah blah blah. All right, I'll work my way back up. Iran seen bills blah blah. Why the uh because if they did do preemptive strikes, that would be the coin flip towards them being the instigator, which would then leave us with no pretend public holdback. There isn't a real public holdback because, for one, a lot of people back in the US are still way too concerned with everything that's going on domestically, anyways. But also, we've entered into the modern era of societal malaise where people kind of just like, and this happened in Russia with the Ukraine war as well, where everyone kind of just like looks at it and is like, it's whatever. So they're the whole public angle is kind of pretend at this point, but they're still playing it for safety somewhat. But if Iran struck first, then that would that would kind of just tip things over the well, no holds barred angle. Plus, also, they might still hope that they can like wiggle out of it. Like if they concede enough or pretend to concede enough on some of the points of the supposed deal, then they might be able to get out. But again, the points were things that we kind of knew they would never agree to in the first place. The first one is no nukes, and that includes nuclear material altogether. The second one was no more missiles. I'm just going to put MI. And the third one was no more proxy groups. So basically, just leave the playground altogether. Uh, these two are a no, like wholesale. This one there's kind of some wiggle room with, because they supposedly made a proposition of they'll give their nuclear material to Russia. They insist it has to be Russia, who can then give them back uranium that has explicitly been refined into the type that can only be used for power plant rods and that can't be used for nuclear warheads. But this is, again, even if the negotiations were real, even if they were sincere, this is a no go from our angle because we don't trust Russia. That so, and Iran kind of knows that, but that's like the only option they could go with that would still have any like any aura or to I felt I lost brain cells by speaking you Zoomers words. Any actual like face value remaining to them because they're not willing to turn it over to the whatever the International Nuclear Committee, not committee, whatever the International Nuclear Committee's name is, they're not willing to give it over to them. And China kind of turned them down on being a like buddy in this scenario. So Russia was their only option because they don't trust anyone else, and also they're not willing to give it to like a huge swath of the world, anyways, because they internally, publicly, demonize a large portion of the outside world. So they only would be able to and would trust giving it to, at this point, Russia, but that's a no go on our end. So there is no real way out of it. They're willing to lie and promise on the sheet of paper that they'll never make nukes, but they're not willing to give up the nuclear program itself, uh, and would be willing to trade material for material, but their only trading partner option is not one that we're willing to go with. Plus, also, that's not really the reason, anyways. Uh, we just want this whole regime, this whole entity as it stands, to be out. As there's the three main things that stepped up onto the plate, set because Taiwan is coming, and we want no tie downs, no distractions when that happens. So the only primary issues that had to be dealt with were Venezuela, which was not a security issue really, but a resource availability issue. Cuba, who is kind of a really minor to mild security issue, in that although we've kind of allowed it to keep going that way, players we don't like have come and gone from Cuba. And although no one's brought in anything since the 60s that would be like directly obvious, there still has been a chance this whole time that people could have been sneaking some stuff in small scale, and we just don't want that anymore. And also want to be able to go into Cuba and, sort of double check everything. So that's why the stuff with Cuba is also happening right now, and that's getting set up. But that militarily will not be the difficult thing. This one is where the biggest risk is. And for the variety of reasons of we just want it gone, because of A, they control and supply so many groups in the surrounding region, and also they have remained a antagonistic force that had the risk of knocking out significant amounts of oil production at any point in time if they were to ever launch before these days, where now there's a bunch of AD systems there because of us uh, having this whole thing upcoming. They could have, at some point, if they felt like it, launched some drones or missile waves and knocked some stuff out, like they had the Houthis do to Saudi Arabia back in 2018, which for a couple weeks took about 1.5 million barrels per day of production offline. So they are in the category of, from the Pentagon's point of view, cannot be allowed to continue. Also, from the collaboration with Russia angle, that takes that out. And also, dealing a severe hit to them will suppress, at the very least, their domestic oil consumption for a while. And here, let me show you. For anyone who's new or not aware, if you go to my channel, go under any video I've made in the last 2 years, there is a link under the PayPal and Patreon links. There's a free access drive link here. Takes you here with folders filled with all kinds of graphs and databases across all kinds of different subjects that are free to access, since every other site is or entity is putting their stuff behind paywalls. I'm maintaining a free to access base. They just don't look as nice as the ones that, I don't know, Bloomberg or Financial Times would make, since all I have access to is free software. Iran's domestic oil consumption is close to 2 million barrels per day. So Severe blow to them would suppress their domestic consumption for a bit, along with, oops, out here, along with, as was the revealed to obviously be the case with Venezuela, would allow outside oil companies' entrance to take over and revitalize a bunch of stuff and restore Iran's oil production to higher than they would otherwise be able to maintain themselves. And post sanctions relief, they were only able to get up to a maximum of about 3.4, and they've been heading back downwards since then. With their export margin thinning out, also as their domestic consumption is pretty high. So their production could be brought back up to higher levels while their consumption goes down. That widens the exports margin, makes more readily available crude on the global market for an extended period, and crude of a better quality than a number of other things. That plus doing Venezuela, in part because in total, wait, we have no, that's a long way down. In totality, because there's going to be supply issues soon, as shale, for the U.S. specifically, shale has hit its limits and we're about to be tipping down over into the decline. Russia was already going to peak and decline gradually, anyways, around this time, but they've been on their way down semi-artificially ever since invading Ukraine. Yeah, there they are. So nowhere near as steep as the post-Soviet collapse, but still meandering their way down there, along with a lot of other locales that have reached peak and are on their way down. So a mixture of a number of different things. With Venezuela, it was predominantly to secure the revitalization of that supply, especially since Venezuela has the capability eventually of maintaining a as much as 5 to 6 million barrels per day for many decades. Uh, Iran, it's that partially that you could count that as like 30% of the reason, but 60 to 70% is all the other like actual military related stuff that I mentioned before, mentioning the oil stuff. Those are like the three main things that we wanted to deal with before Taiwan happens, because despite denial and resistance to the idea amongst many former chatters, yes, we are going into that directly once that starts. I mean, unless China just flops and flounders like horrifically, if it looks like things go terribly for China really fast out of the gate, then we might kind of hold back and sort of wait and watch. But otherwise, if us giving China's military capacity and competency the benefit of the doubt turns out to be validated, and they do perform well, then yes, we're getting involved in that directly for the sake of protecting Taiwan itself, protecting the vital industry assets that are on Taiwan, despite enough for survivability, have been relocated to other locales around the world. But a huge part is still in Taiwan. And also, once every generation or so, as whether a superpower or a major power, you do kind of eventually, this is kind of on a subconscious level, I guess, or on long game type stuff, if you want to get into like political military philosophy or whatever you would call it. There's been a long observed pattern of at least once every generation or so, you have to kind of do a big flex of some kind. And it's been over 35 years since Gulf One. So hit the time where, we would kind of have to do something. And since we need, for insurance that the invasion fails, we need to be directly involved with Taiwan anyways. You know, what better opponents to do it with than the one you view as the closest to parity? Because if you come out of that fight as the victor, then that's kind of undisputable. Let me drink some water. Maybe eat some of the Girl Scout cookies. Man, that was a long go. That all sprung out from one question, didn't it? What was it? Uh, one person asked like why don't they do a preemptive strike or something? Let's see. Uh, Iraq. What's it? No. That's more that was during like the direct occupation, but no, there's no like literal direct string pulling. That the total direct string pulling lasted about like 4 or 5 years. As again, the reason we did that, the reason Iraq happened was similar to the oil reasoning uh, for Venezuela and Iran. With Iraq, it was, you see this repeating pattern. Iraq is capable of really high production numbers, and they're about to be heading up over five towards the end of this year or so, unless Iran specifically like targets some of their oil and gas infrastructure. But they have not done that any of the times that they've threatened to do that, at least not yet. You see this repeating pattern where Iraq was really low, and they got up like to decent enough numbers for like just a little bit, but then every time Saddam does something stupid, then things recover, then Saddam does something stupid, then things recover, then he starts doing something stupid. So there was a repeating pattern, and after after liberating Kuwait and leaving him in power because we didn't want to go through with that invasion at the time, just restoring Kuwait's oil production was viewed as enough. Plus, also, uh, they were kind of iffy about wanting to do the invasion and occupation thing at the time. But also, it was approaching. It was approaching election, or the very next year would be an election. H.W. Bush still lost the election anyways, but uh, then so we left him in power. And then things recovered. It took a while, but then things recovered. But then he started doing the Kurdish genocide stuff, and things started getting wobbly and wonky. And Pentagon reached the decision point of, all right, three strikes is enough. It's time to just boot him. So he was removed. You have the actual occupation period, during which things were, yes, directly controlled. But since then, no, Iraq is doing whatever it generally wants to do. The only like whisper in your ear caveat from us is just don't don't start doing this pattern again. As long as the oil stays going to the market, then everything's fine. Uh, blah blah blah. It's because blah blah. Is man? Okay, yeah. There's no timestamps for these, or is there? Nope. All right, I'm assuming that was in regards to the tomato export thing. Canadian government IQ. They are not in the small list of countries with an IQ higher than 10, if that's what you're asking. They've come close a few times, but then they randomly do something unbelievably stupid. Let's see. Yeah, saw that one. Rhonda. No, I don't. I don't. I didn't. I was talking about attitudes. I didn't mean like. I didn't mean like no one knows. I wasn't saying no one knows why like X happened. I'm just saying that like in the past, in not just like the U.S. for example, in the past throughout most countries, uh, what to do war, especially because a lot of times in the past it usually up until the 20th century it usually involved a lot of like human mass and manpower, and even through like the first half of the 20th century it still kind of involved a lot of forced conscription and manpower to for wars and stuff to be happening. You kind of really needed to have the public approval because a lot of them were going to die. However, over the last few decades, especially now, for the nations doing the engaging, especially now that a lot of stuff is done by drone strikes and air bombing, uh, public attitude in a lot of cases kind of just has come to a point of indifference of like, oh yeah, it's happening, but yeah, it's whatever, and it's most cases the assumption, uh, in most cases the assumption ends up being correct. That it's going to be over in a few weeks or a few months anyways, so it's not really much point in like getting vocal or trying to do anything about it. Now, if you know if the aircraft vanished, if drones stopped existing, and all of a sudden the government of country X started just like grabbing millions of people uh, and just like throwing them into waves of machine gun fire, then you would go back into a more the people really better be on board with this type of age. But the level of let's see, not only that, but also the in a lot of cases at least the lack of direct rebounding personal life consequence, as especially in Europe. This especially goes for Europe. uh, you know because of the smallness and proximity, and since a lot of the wars were literally with neighbors, uh, you know, it there was quite a fair chance if things bounced back like against you, then you're going to be on the foul receiving end of something. So you really needed the populace to be on board with whatever you were about to do. Whereas, especially in the case, for the US, because of the double ocean, isolated thing, everything for the most part has been something, like way over here or like way down there in Nigeria or whatever. So there's like very, there's no, in that regard, from that angle as well, there's like not that much really on a personal, day-to-day life level that's going to like come back at you. Now, if like, the one other thing that I could think of that like might come towards that level would be like, if like I don't know, like dozens of uh, jihadist suicide bombers started like detonating themselves in the streets of like major cities like every day in the US, that that would then register in the same way as blowback consequences used to back in the ye olden days. But that doesn't really happen. Okay. That is not what we're talking about. That is random insert. I will update people on stuff when there is stuff to update about that thing. Uh, Saudi Arabia does not have the amount of surge production capacity that they're bragging about. Even they finally started admitting after all the years of insisting that at the like the flip of a switch they could jump up to like 15 or 16 million barrels a day. They are as they're heading towards the end of their like plateau capability. They're unless you're in the camp that actually believes that their oil reserves have remained exactly 262 billion barrels for the last 40 years and have never changed in either direction. Uh, that is magical thinking. But they insisted for the longest time that they could go up to 15 or 16. Then, sometime in the 2010s, in like 2018 or 2017, they started admitting that they were down to uh, only being able to go up to 13 if they wanted to push it. And then up until the last 2 years, they had been admitting that now it was like 12 would be the cap. However, now the new crown prince has said that he's directed he's directed Saudi Aramco to make it make it so that it's 15 again. I don't know if that's meant for public blustering or if that's like a Trump-esque thing, and he just believes that if he tells them that, it'll happen. So he is insisting that it is going to be back up to 15 as a maximum again because he said so, but that's not how geology works. So their cap is down to around 12, and or actually now it's probably more between 11 and a half and 12. And they're approaching the point where they're not going to actually be able to keep indefinitely holding a 10 or 10 plus million barrel per day plateau. They're the first one that's going to slip. Iraq, because of unexplored territory and a bunch of stuff that has not been fully developed, has the highest future end capability. They could get as high as 9 if they really wanted to, but that would take a bit more work than what's being put in. Everything that's slated to be done is enough to potentially push them up to about 6 over the next 3 years. Kuwait, if they return to a full 3 million barrel per day plateau, uh, they could they could hold theirs until sometime in the 2040s. Qatar's not really a large oil player, and they're approaching the end of their ability to hold between 1.3 and 1.4. They won't actually be able to clean onto that one for much longer. Their natural gas output, if they stopped where they're at right now, they could hold that for a century and a half because of the sheer size of the Pars gas field, especially since Iran is not producing anywhere near as much from it. But they are going to be upping their gas production from 20 up to 30 billion cubic feet per day. So the amount of time they could hold that for is going to get reduced. Oil wise, the UAE is going up to a 4 million barrel per day plateau, and they should be able to hold that into the mid or later 2040s. But that will depend on a few things. But Saudi Arabia's fabled like 5 to 6 million barrels per day of extra surge capacity is not actually real. It was at one point, but it isn't anymore. Now, from where their production sits at the moment, it's like uh, 1.5 to 2 million barrels per day of extra. But is there anybody else there? No, no one else that matters. Oman's not a real player. So yeah, those are where their settings are at. Iran also has untouched stuff. It has a number of inland basins. Granted, one of those is in Balochistan, but they also have portions of the Persian Gulf that they haven't touched, along with the sloping portion off the Gulf of Oman, as well as, oops, wait. Uh, so everybody keeps saying not the war with Canada, but the doubting U.S. direct involvement in Taiwan stuff. If it happens and goes all the way through and I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I'm not deviating from that one. Again, with this, like, yeah, they if they target the oil infrastructure with missiles, that is a real thing. Blocking the strait is not a real thing. They don't have a real navy. Like they have a navy, but their navy is not capable of doing anything. Block the straits how? With what? What, lay sea mines? If their mine layers actually left and looked like they were going to do that, regardless of anything else going on, they would be sunk immediately. We already played this game once. Their power is almost entirely concentrated in their missile arsenal, which is big. And if they chose to attack oil and gas infrastructure, yeah, they would do some damage, but you literally said lose all of Saudi Arabia's capacity as in what the in this scenario does the air defense net just cease existing somehow magically? Like I get everyone's on uh getting hyped up on the same train every time something new steps up of like hyping up whoever the person is and like getting all like UFC fight hyped about watching the US is finally going to get its comeuppance or something, but that's not what's going to happen. Like, yeah, uh, country you being able to literally do whatever with effectively zero consequences is really, really bad. But that does not stop the reality of effectively no one can really do anything about it except maybe China if they wanted to get like really in on it, but Taiwan is their spiritual end game, so coming out against us is not really their concern. I mean, or technically Europe uh and or plus like Japan and South Korea kind of could, but uh their the level of intertiedness, regardless of the Trump stuff, is kind of a bit too much. All right, how long have we been going for? An hour, longer than I intended. All right, this is going to be where I cut it off, probably, and I need to turn the AC down a bit. The AC was not coming through on the audio, was it? I want to double check that. I remember last summer. I remember last summer you guys said it did not come through, but I want to make sure that's still the case. Is there? Let us double check one last time just to see if it started or not. No, that's just general updates. Blah blah blah. If we'll accept the deal if it's substantially would protect everyone at home. Okay, so no, that still just means no deal. Ah, yes. Sure thing, Axios. Sure thing. Sure thing, Axios. I'm sure the force massing was just for funsies. What do you mean still live? It's only been an hour. I started over an hour after I originally intended to. But yeah, that's where this one's gonna end. We're past the time where it would if it was gonna start tonight, we're past the time it would have. Yeah, just let me okay, yeah, if it's already almost 5 a.m., it is definitely not starting tonight. Plus, there's still, I mean, there was still stuff literally on the way 2 hours ago. So that uh, that one person's call that might be getting delayed until like after the State of the Union address, like maybe. Uh, but again, like everyone kind of already hates Trump, so this wanting to delay it until after the speech to not have this hanging over his head would kind of like it would literally just be one more thing. It's not it's not like it would be a positive like rosy affair if not for this or something. But if stuff is still going in and what was still going in like literally even just 2 hours ago, and some of the flights were still just leaving the UK, which would take like 4 hours to get down there to the Middle East. Yeah, it's not nothing starting tonight, and if like tomorrow morning stuff is still there's still a lot of like C-17s or stuff in transit or whatever bringing stuff in, then that will be a pretty clear sign that it's not tomorrow night either. At which point then it would not be until next weekend because the U.S. does not do attacks until the markets are closed. Israel doesn't really care about the markets. Israel will kind of just do whatever, whenever. But still kind of, if they're still kind of somewhat on a leash, then they would be waiting until the U.S. starts to then also throw their own part into it. But I mean, one day Netanyahu could just lose it for all I know. Could go like crazy Kim Jong Un road and just uh, start doing literally whatever and not waiting for the proper clearance. Sorry, I had to chug water again. Oh, okay. Uh, sorry. I usually want to start at like 5:30 or 6 US Eastern time, because usually a lot of people seem to be in the US already available. Uh, and also that, you know, that is a bit easier on the hours of people like over in Europe, where the other uh, for from what I've seen, like 90% of my viewership is U.S., Canada, and Europe, with a for some reason a rare like big a huge chunk of that other 10% is Somalis, who all of them live in like the UK or Norway, but they have, I guess, their location on YouTube is registered as Somalia. For some reason, I have some huge chunk of the viewership is Somali, but 90% is US and Europe. So those are the primary like time zone considerations. With that last 1% being Australia and New Zealand. So 5:30/6 p.m. US East time is usually enough or good enough for like both ends, as that's like midnight, 1 a.m. in Europe, which for some of them isn't too bad. But this today I was doing stuff earlier, and then I got a phone call. I wasn't expecting to have anybody call me, but I got a phone call like around the time I was going to start, so I was on the phone for a bit. I have no familiarity with Ace Combat. The only cringe gaming I did was back in high school and very early university, and that was all. I did not do that. The was the main online stuff. My more musically inclined associate from New York did War Thunder or whatever. I did Call of Duty back when it was still playable, but that was more Call of Duty plot lines were more like insert psycho terrorist here magically gets a hold of nukes and or uh, gets access to like I don't know ancient some ancient like Nazi death gas that would is so lethal it would dilute through the atmosphere and kill all life on Earth or whatever. And he like finds it buried in like Siberia or something. And for some reason, despite being a small terrorist organization, uh, they always have like literally infinite infantry personnel. I know what Metal Gear is. That's just not something I played. I mean, I got turned off when I saw like I saw my dad play it once when I was a kid, or he played one of them, and it looked initially like a military game to me, but then there was this you know obligatory stereotypical sexy voice Russian chick, seductive spy, and then there was this dude with like a metal face and with like lightning powers or something, and I was like, all right, man. Even as a little kid, I was like, all right, nah, bro, that ain't me. Now, I don't know if that was it looked like a metal face. Maybe it was like I don't know, blue radiation poisoning Chernobyl face or something, but it literally looked like a dude with like a metal face. So even as a little kid, I was like, I don't okay, I like military games, but not with like uh Doctor Doom or whatever. Now, the ones we played the most were uh, the the original Modern Warfares and the Black Ops ones, both of which have the same issues of like not understanding what force deployment is militarily, and like every faction like just basically just teleports. Like everybody can just get anywhere, and any amount of force can just appear anywhere, like any location. Uh, I mean, it's fun, but looking back on like trying to like give lean even like 1% into a logical analysis of it, I'm like, damn man, that is like some teleportation that that's some teleportation that like Star Trek would be envious of. Yeah, I already looked at that when someone else was complaining about things. They I there's nothing in there. There's nothing in there that has like a thing saying that it will block this or that. Like I don't even there is a thing that says choose like words to block or whatever, but I don't even have any words listed in that. And there's no actual specification in there because I don't know if it was you or someone else, but someone was trying to send links, and there's no like selection in there that says links are banned or whatever, or that there's no thing to like select it or unselect it. There are there are there are like invisible comments on, not like publicly invisible, but uh or sorry, not just publicly invisible, but like invisible to me too. In on some of my videos, it says like some of them have like 15 comments, and I go in to like the full show me everything setting on the creator side of YouTube, not the viewer side, and I can physically only see like four out of a supposed 15 comments. So there is some kind of background thing that I don't have control over. But that is going to be the end of this one. I would say it would probably I would probably go ahead and say not starting this weekend. Just because there's still stuff coming in tonight, and think I would think they would want to start on Friday night, just to have the full weekend to run through the initial opening of it. But I could be wrong. Maybe it does end up starting tomorrow night. I don't know. All right, that is it. I will see everybody around next time. And the oil demand levels, natural gas production levels, and electricity demand levels videos should be up in the next week or two. The OPEC video is up, but everything seems to have, I guess, disappeared. I know the notifications don't really matter anymore. Like YouTube will not notify people of anything. You effectively at this point do just have to physically go to a channel and look to see if they've uploaded new stuff. But I'm assuming even just the front page, a casual showing has stopped, because I did see a sudden view count drop from like normally my views are small normally, like the regular like different oil update videos are normally would only get like 400 views anyways, but they did recently start dropping down to like 200 or even like only 100, which is kind of weird. But the monthly oil demand one will be up soon, and the natural gas levels and the electricity levels, and something else that I'm forgetting about. But that's it. So I'll see you guys